Firstly, welcome along to our live stream today. We are here this afternoon. We have got David Anderson with us this afternoon. We're going to talk a little bit about customer experience. We are going live on a number of platforms. So if you are watching with us now, just you can drop in some comments as we go. Also, if you are watching on the replay, we'd love that. Just leave some comments in the chat box or on the social media platforms. We'd just love to see you. So, firstly, love to welcome along David Anderson this afternoon. So, welcome along, David. How are you?
Andrew, thank you very much. I am very well, thanks.
Excellent. Well, David is involved. Just tell us a little, just briefly, David, the company that you work with at the moment.
The company is called Insight 6, and we are a franchise business. The company started over 20 years ago in Australia, and they entered the UK market about 13 years ago, and then they franchised 1 year after that. And I'm one of 25 franchisees across the UK and Ireland.
Excellent. Never actually knew that the business was originally started in Australia. So, yeah, fantastic.
In Perth.
So let's forget about business for a moment. Tell us about the David Anderson from a personal aspect. Tell us a wee bit about you, who you are, what you're involved in from on a personal level before we even get to some business.
Well, outside of work, I play golf. I play at Beaver Park Golf Club in Belfast. I'm a member of Randallstown Rugby Club, and I represent them on the Ulster Branch Clubs Committee. I also sit on the Disciplinary Committee of Ulster Rugby. I sit on the Commercial and Marketing Committee of Ulster Rugby. And then finally, I'm elected from the Clubs Committee to represent qualifying clubs on the Ulster Branch Committee, which is the governing body of Ulster Rugby. And outside of that, I enjoy cooking, I enjoy good food, and I've been known to take the odd cruise on nice cruise ships around the world, which takes me back to my grassroots, where I had a very early induction to cruising at age 11, and then I got a scholarship with P&O Cruises aged 18 in hospitality management.
Excellent. Well, I know you're involved in rugby because I must admit now David has got me the odd ticket for something in the past, so thankful for that. We don't want to say too much because you end up getting a whole pile of people, David, looking for tickets off you.
I'm always happy to give tickets. If I have tickets to somebody that I don't need myself, I'm happy to sell them on to the right person like you.
And it was sell them on, actually didn't give them to me. So that's the other side of it.
I have to buy them myself. So well, face value.
Yeah, no, we have some people watching. So again, if you are watching, put some comments in the box. If you've got any questions, and I can see them. Sometimes on some of the platforms you just can't always see them. But anyhow, that's good. I'm glad that you're here. David, you mentioned rugby. That's one thing. So what is it? You're passionate about rugby. What is it drew you into rugby? Such.
I played rugby at school, and first form Bangor Grammar just got me going with the oval-shaped ball. And my father played a bit at school. My uncle had played a bit as well. And I remember being asked, "Where do you want to play?" And I said, "Hooker." I don't know why I said that in hindsight, but I never left that position again. And that was from first form in school right the way through till I stopped playing. I played hooker, so that's why my nose sort of hangs actually that way if you look at it on camera.
So rugby, bit of golf?
Bit of golf, yeah. I've been playing golf now at Beaver for over 20 years.
And also you talked about cooking and stuff. I didn't realise you're into the cooking. So what's a really great cooking thing for you? What do you love cooking?
I love the challenge of cooking something original and new, and I guess I also enjoy the simplicity of going back to what I do well, and which I can do with my eyes shut. So it's a combination of teaching myself via a good cookbook, or just doing it by knowledge.
You also mentioned about got the rugby, the cooking, and you talked about cruising and stuff like that. So you've been on more than one cruise. How many cruises have you actually been on?
I genuinely don't know. I'm going to say as a passenger over 30, but I just genuinely, it's in around the 30 mark as a passenger.
Which one of those cruises maybe have stood out for you has been something magnificent? What is it you love about cruising? So
there's two that spring to mind. One was a brilliant cruise where we cruised from Seattle, I do believe, from Seattle to Miami. So we went down the west coast of America, Costa Rica, Mexico, Panama Canal, Colombia, and then up into Miami. And that was just great people on board, great great hospitality, great weather, and seeing sights that I never thought I'd see. And then I did one 4 years ago from Sydney to Singapore, around the Gold Coast of Australia, up over the north of Australia into Indonesia, and then into Singapore. So those were the two that really, to me, stand out above the rest.
So what is it? Because this is interesting as well, because I know you're in the customer experience industry now as such.
Yeah.
What is it that stands out about those types of cruises for you from a customer experience point of view?
I think the one, for example, from Australia to Singapore, the staff ratio is good. Staff to passenger ratio is good, and there's never a chance of them saying no. They always try and deliver what they can for you. If you make a request of them, if you ask for something, they will go out of their way to get it for you. And it's end to end. It's every member of staff contributing their bit to make your whole passage and your whole journey as pleasant and as easy as possible.
I know one of the things, I was on one cruise. I've only ever been on one cruise, and I absolutely enjoyed it. But there's a massive number of staff that are there to look after you.
There are.
And it's really to make the whole experience.
Yeah. But I guess the key of customer experience, though, is making sure that every member of staff fulfills their obligation, their role to the best of their ability. So it's continuity throughout both the journey, as in the customer journey, but also all the staff you come across performing it at the same level of competency.
So, and again, I'm jumping away ahead here, some of my thoughts, but if you were relating the customer experience on a cruise ship, what's the one thing out of that whole thing you think of? I think that really stands out that should be implemented even in a small business. What's one element of that?
If you cruise, depending what cruise line you cruise with, but for example, we've done quite a number of cruises on a line called Azamara, and what I find is there's just a smile on everybody's face, no matter what level they're at, whether they're painting the ship or it's the captain. There's always a smile on their face every time you come across them.
I think that's some people. I see some people, and they have got natural smiling faces.
Mm-hmm.
They're just natural. I struggle with that personally. That's sorry, you get that laugh or that different things. You can be jolly or whatever, but some just naturally just seem to have that lovely smiling faces, which just phenomenal.
And that's what comes across. No matter how bad a day they're having, and we don't know how bad their days really are if they're away from their family for a long time, etc. But at the same time, when they're out there doing their day-to-day job, they have a smile on their face.
Yeah. I mean, somebody one time told me, and this is coming from Disney World, was that whenever they employ people, they don't always employ happy people, but they employ people who can be happy people. In other words, they have to act that they're on stage. Right. I think that's the way it was.
They are. They're all performers.
And I suppose that's where we all need to be in business in some ways. So tell me, David, how long have you been with the Inside Six franchise?
Went live on the 1st of July 2014. That's 8 years in literally a month and a half's time. Okay.
So what were you involved in yourself personally before then? What was it that what type of work? How did you get started in work? Where did you from you left school, that type of thing?
Well, basically, my career prior to Inside Six was for 25 years in pharmaceuticals, and through a very strange twist of fate, got made redundant. It was quite widespread in the industry at the time, and I saw the advert for Inside Six in a pharmaceutical magazine of all places, and that intrigued me. It got me looking at their website. I realized they were serious with what they do. And I could have been easily very dismissive when I first read the ad, but I went on their website and said, hey, this is good. And really the wheels were put in motion not long after that. And within 4 months of seeing that advert, I had the franchise bought.
Very good. Well, in the pharmaceutical industry, what were you actually involved in there? What was your sort of...
The last company I worked for was a company called UCB, which is United Chemicals of Belgium. And I latterly was the critical care manager for Ireland, and that was with a range of drugs designed to help people in a critical care situation. The most basic of them all was actually adrenaline, and adrenaline is used very much in the grounds of if somebody has a serious heart attack, they may want to do CPR on them, they may want to use a defib on them, but if neither of those have worked, adrenaline is their last gasp saloon. And if that doesn't work, then really they are going to die at that point in time. In fact, in many respects, you could say they're dead when the adrenaline is administered. But we had a team, we sold these in pre-filled syringes, so they were easy to use by doctors, nurses, paramedics, who could administer them very, very quickly and very efficiently.
Who were you selling those to then? Were you selling them to hospitals?
I often look at that product range we had a bit like Coleman's mustard. And Mr. Coleman said when he first invented mustard, he made his money from what was left on the side of the plate. And these products were very, very similar. They were must-have products, but they were very rarely used. But they had to have them in the crash trolley in every ward at every hospital. They had to have them in the ambulances. Some doctors would carry them as well. We had a scheme in Dublin where every single GP in Dublin had a small mini kit of ours that they could be obviously administered these drugs on a call out. So really, they would often go out of date and not be used, but they had to be there for that backup if the situation was an emergency. There was about 10 of them in the range for different ailments, and if they were used and they worked, then that was a great good news story. But very often they were just simply not using it and then replaced because of their need. And therefore, it was hospital pharmacies, it was consultants within the respiratory committee. No, sorry, no, it wasn't respiratory. No, resuscitation committee. That's what it was. Resuscitation committee, and obviously paramedics, which was done through the ambulance service.
All right, very good. Well, you tell them I've been in that industry for 25 years. Did you from leaving school? Was there university? What did you start on? What was going on in there before you got into that, or did you?
Yes, again, I fell into that by chance, and I had obviously done the hospitality scholarship through P&O Cruises, and but was working in the food sector. Got made redundant, and I went for a job application to a drug company. And by sheer chance, I was in a pharmacy the day before doing some research, so I get myself prepared for the interview, and I became aware of two men in the pharmacy who I reckoned and worked out they would be interviewing me the following day, just by what they were saying and what they were doing. And the friend of mine who owned the pharmacy, he helped me procure a list of all their products. So the following day, they asked me at my interview, which products of ours are you aware of? I produced this document detailing all their products. And to their shock, they said, where'd you get that from? And I said, yesterday. You didn't see me, but I saw you. And I think because I came into the interview prepared, had done my groundwork, had done my homework, that made the passage that bit easier. And I got the job, and the rest is history in that sense.
Very good. Well, you said, you just went over it very quickly, but you said you started with sort of P&O and around customer affairs. Tell me about that.
How that evolved. It came to a sudden end, Andrew, and the end of that was called the Falklands War, when the ship got sent to the Falklands War. And that sort of knocked everything on the head at that point in time, as a lot of merchant fleets were sent to the South Atlantic.
They are. It didn't realize. So you've had an interest in cruising from an early age, in a sense, and you've also had that customer sort of service side there as well.
When you work in a customer-facing role in those cruise ships, you get a very early grasp of customer service, which ultimately leads into customer experience.
And did that experience take you anywhere special at that time that you're involved in? Was there any
massive learning curve? Was really, I would say, in terms of stepping out of that school environment and going away from home. Without your parents there, a massive big learning curve it was, and hopefully it's carried across into what I do today.
How far did you get? What was the furthest destination when you were working for them originally?
Russia, Caribbean, North Africa. It was great.
So the whole experience, really, in that sense, young person, in that sense, getting away, just put that travel thing into you as well, like that.
What P&O tried to do, P&O had a division that was called Educational Cruises, and that's what it was focused around, on educating people, both as students and both as passengers who were students, right the way through to their crew.
I think in many ways, my career, I really started in ATS Euromaster, which was a multinational company, but they taught you so much. There's such a structure there.
Yes.
And they aim to bring you through from apprenticeship as such right through to certain levels of management.
Yeah, I can relate to that, because in theory, whilst you might say every day was different because you'd be in a different place every day, the actual routine of the actual functionality of the job was the same every day. As in, you had admin roles to do, but also you had customer facing to do.
I think all those things, and again, I think we can always relate that back to small business, some of the things they need to do and train and all the rest of it.
Yes.
So let's fast forward to where you are now in the industry you're in, and you've had a difficult time, I suppose, with the whole COVID thing for the last couple of years.
It's been hard for everybody. Now, in our business where we're so diverse, a lot of my colleagues would do work with law firms. A lot of law firms have just continued working away continually and have been using ourselves to measure that customer experience that they offer to their customers. Others colleagues of mine who work more in hospitality and attractions have had much leaner times. So it's been a combination of the two.
So tell us a wee bit more about your company, what you're involved in, the products that you've got, the types of clients you deal with, why they deal with you, that type of thing, David.
Well, I think basically what they try and do is they work with us because it's all about development. It's about people skills and making sure their staff are delivering to the maximum of their potential. In our name of Inside Six, we like to think we have 6 different tools in our toolkit. And those 6 include, for example, customer experience measurement or a customer experience review. And that very often can be called mystery shopping. Then we have some training we do. And the training is very much done on the back of the customer experience measurement. Our systems are quite advanced and we can identify and draw out of our reviews the areas of weakness, and we can make bespoke training courses around that. We do journey mapping, we do focus groups, we can also mentor staff in terms of those who want to become the customer experience champion within a business. We can take them forward in that pathway as well. And then finally, we have a tool which we built in-house ourselves called Insight, which is, as a friend of mine often refers to it as, it's SurveyMonkey on steroids. It's one of the most advanced survey systems in the world. It will capture live feedback. It's a live system. What it does do, it sends out trigger alerts when you've got unhappy clients. I have a law firm in Belfast, and they got 25 minutes after going live, they had an unhappy client, which they didn't know was unhappy, and they could easily have lost them. It also benchmarks the business by their business sector. And finally, if the feedback it captures is positive feedback, and that could be either a happy face in the mood faces, or it could be a 9 or 10 on Net Promoter Score, then the system asks the responder to paste those comments onto social media. And that could be Google reviews or TripAdvisor or Trustpilot or even Amazon. We personally recommend that they use Google reviews. There was data came out recently in the past month that Google reviews now account for 51% of all reviews read online. And the importance of that is Google reviews will also drive your SEO when Google analyze your website for ranking.
You mentioned a couple of things there in passing at the very start. You talked about journey mapping. So for maybe people who are listening in today and maybe not fully aware, could you explain just what that journey mapping is and why it's maybe
a journey mapping session is where you bring between 4 and 8 individuals and you might do it 2 at one time. So you give 2 tables of 8 and you give them a fictional scenario of a fictional journey. And there was one I relate to quite often was going to a wedding, and my wife was getting shoes ready in the early part of the week, and the heel snapped off. So her journey was to find a new pair of shoes for that week. So it was a matter of going online, typing into Google what she was looking for, identifying those who came up with good SEO at the top of the search engine, obviously clicking on a link, following that link into a retailer. The case was the retailer's website was down, but they had a Facebook link and a Twitter link. Facebook was good, Twitter was poor. So she ended up having to phone them and get the idea of the shoes she wanted. Shoes were left aside. When she went to get them, they couldn't find them. And what we do in a situation of this, a journey mapping situation, is where we take staff and we put them through a scenario where what can go wrong and what could go wrong, and how do you fix it, and how do you prevent it going wrong? How do you make that journey a nice, smooth journey from start to finish? And we make them think of where the pitfalls are.
Very good. And is there any one experience you've had or an example where you've seen a major success with that, where you've had a client and you've done that journey mapping with them, or you've identified gaps which has helped them? Is there one client maybe you could relate on?
On a golf club application process, where the application process was very poor, and they identified very quickly the improvements they could make. And this was both at volunteer level and administration level. So from the point of view of doing the Google research, down to actually sitting down to have an interview to join that golf club. So many pitfalls were identified that were then smoothed out to make the journey better.
Very good. Well, you mentioned also a part of it was mystery shopping, as such as people might class it as that. We used to do different elements. You also had the other one, and I'm only using this for a bit of fun, was the mystery shoplifting.
Yeah, we do mystery shoplifting. It's a very enlightening experience when two individuals can go in and in 25 minutes can steal £600 worth of goods from a shop from under their nose. And two of my colleagues in England did it, or so one of my colleagues in England did it a few years back in a farm shop, and after half an hour they hadn't been caught. They'd stolen a vast amount of goods. They went and said to the owner of the farm shop, "Look, we're going to draw a line in the sand here. We've done enough." And he said, "No. Go to the tea room and take a chair." So the two of them went to the tea room. The members of staff were there. They walked in, took a chair, and walked out the door with a chair. Nobody said boo to them.
I know I was involved in one of your experiments, or one of the things we did one time, which was an experience for me.
Yes.
In many ways, it was fun to do, but it was interesting to see the reactions. And
it is, and it's a challenge for those who are doing it to put themselves into that environment that they wouldn't normally find themselves in. And like I did it sometime after you with a girl. She came along and joined me for it, and we were doing some work in Randallstown, and the sweat was just dripping off her because of the adrenaline that was going through her veins. Yeah. What happens if I'm caught here? Even though it's a training exercise, and the owners of the business are fully aware of what's happening, it still puts the person doing it under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Well, you're reimbursed well, Andrew, for that's the important thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, the other thing you did talk about, this instant insight,
yes.
That type of thing. So, where do you see the real value for people, and are people seeing that value from a product, and how does that turn into ultimately?
The best way to describe that is looking at the concept behind the product. And I often use the situation where you could have, it was probably designed with a law firm in mind as being the perfect client. And what happened was we took a fictional situation of a law firm working with a client for 8 months. And at the end of the 8 months, 3 things happen. 1, they send you a bill that horrifies you. 2, you pay it and that makes you cry. And 3, they say, "Can we have some feedback?" Well, when you leave feedback, something may have gone wrong. It was never rectified at month 3, and they're only finding out about it now at month 9. That actually means they've lost you as a client. Instant Insight, by comparison, is a live system. It's always awake. It's always asking the question of how was your experience? How do you feel about the service you've had from that supplier? So as a live system, it's always capturing those answers. And then when it captures that feedback, it can be responded to. There's a trigger alert. Like, for example, that law firm I referred to, who had negative feedback inside 25 minutes, one of their partners had to pick up the phone and ring that client on that day. I had another situation of a client who went live with it there during March, and they get negative feedback from 2 clients. And it was first thing in the morning, he rang me, says, "How do I address this?" The feedback was sitting there, and he now had to take the steps of going out and talking to those customers who had given him negative feedback. So it's almost like an insurance policy, because when that gets responded to immediately, you're addressing the issues that have been raised, and hopefully they can be resolved and the client stays loyal to you.
Out of all the work, and you're talking about successes there, what would you say has been one of your greatest successes that you've seen in your industry so far, in your business so far, and the difference that's made to a client, for instance?
I think to give you one very good example, and I won't probably name any names, it's unfair to name names. I have a client who would be a prestigious hotel, and they use me to come in to mystery shop. They also use the AA, and their AA ranking is very, very high. They're one of the highest ranked hotels in Northern Ireland. But they use me to benchmark and measure their performance the month before the AA come in. So that means they can identify the shortfalls that they need to have time to rectify. So they can analyze, they get my report in, they can look at the shortfalls and say, right, we have to address that now. Now our tools are advanced for the industry. We give them an action plan, so they can very quickly identify the action plan of who has underperformed at our visit and address those issues immediately before the AA come in, and that helps drive their AA ranking to the highest possible level within their category.
whenever I started this off and I was reading a bit of your bio and different things, we're talking about business owners and businesses. One of the things you talked about was the missing link. Okay. Now we're
Yes.
not talking about evolution here or creation. We're
Yeah.
talking about missing link in business. So what is that missing link that you believe is missing in a lot of businesses? And how can we relate that in today's world?
I think there's a number of ways I would relate to this, and that is there are some really advanced, great firms out there who have taken customer experience to the next level, and they make it a very, very smooth journey. Now, for example, I can relate to the Apple. If you ever walk into the Apple shop in Belfast, they work to a process of using the APPLE of their name as your journey. Now, for example, the A stands for approach with a personalized warm welcome. The P stands for probe politely to match the customer with the right product. Second P is present a solution so the customer can make the purchase on that day. L is listen for and resolve any issues or concerns. And the E is end with a fond farewell and an invite to return to the shop in the near future. And that to me is a great example of a good customer journey delivered by the masters.
Yeah. And again, what you're saying is really the missing link in some businesses is that customer experience, which some of these big guys like Apple are doing.
Yes.
But what seems really real to me is that there's nothing stopping any business from delivering that type of service.
No. Everybody can make it bespoke and unique to themselves. There's another great example. I heard a colleague of mine who had the franchise in Berkshire, Graham, came to us from Tesla, and he brought on board some of the Tesla ideas, and they call them little big things. And these might all sound silly, but they all work. And for example, if you ring up a Tesla showroom to book a test drive, they might ask you some very, very strange questions. They might ask you, do you drink tea or coffee? They might ask you, do you drink still water or sparkling water? They might ask you what your favorite song is. And that all becomes part of the journey when you walk through that door to sit down and talk to them about buying a car. For example, as soon as you sit down, your preference of hot drink arrives on cue, tea or coffee. When you go out into the car itself, there's a bottle of water in the car, and it's again still or sparkling water. It's your choice. They know what you prefer. They then also, for example, when you turn on the ignition of the car, the big screen in the Tesla car says, "Welcome, Andrew." And then the car kicks off and you start driving it. And the first thing they've programmed into the sat nav, which you're unaware of, is your home postcode. And that makes you feel homely. It makes you feel as though this car belongs in your home. They then may want to show off the audio in the car. And they've asked you already what your favorite song or bit of music is. You turn on the audio, and it plays that bit of music for you. And finally, when you get back, having done the test drive, they have cleaned your car. They've cleaned your own car for you while you've been away. Those are little big things.
Well, those things just seem phenomenal, but
They are.
They're looking at the smallest items and but they can make a massive difference. That's what's about that big things. We can see that in that car industry. I mean, is there any other car industry that are trying things like that, or is there any other types of companies out there that you could see how could we adapt that to, say, the hotel industry, the hospitality industry? What type of things could you do there, maybe, or things you've seen people do?
I think there's every day is a learning day, and all those industries can pick things up that actually happen elsewhere, and they can learn from Tesla, they can learn from Apple. And for example, if you go back to Instant Insight, one of the measurements we use in Instant Insight is Net Promoter Score. And Net Promoter Score, for those who don't understand it, it gives you a score between -100 and +100. And the four industry leaders that consistently score in the high 60s, early 70s are Apple, Amazon, Tesla, and Netflix. So any business can learn from those four masters of customer experience.
So is there other things that, is there other smaller companies that you've maybe been working with? How have they adapted maybe those little things, but big things, if you know what I mean?
Well, I think there's things, for example, a smaller company, they need to think at grassroots level, and they should be measuring their staff performance. Because when they measure staff performance through, for example, a mystery shop, what they can identify is the areas of shortfall that they can then address and fix. And that could be anywhere from a coffee shop through to a 5-star hotel or a law firm. They can all learn from what has been identified as being a shortfall. And I think measuring staff performance is essential. And I put this situation to maybe even ask you the question, like what is your sport of choice? And it could be on a Saturday afternoon, for example, Saturday gone by, Leinster were playing in the semi-final of the European Cup. Somebody may have come in, turned on the TV to watch their sport of choice, could be in the FA Cup final on Saturday. What happens is, within turning on the TV, one of the first things you do when the match or your sport of choice has started, you check the score. And what are you doing when you check the score? You're measuring your team's performance. And what you'll do subconsciously during, say, a football match or a rugby match is subconsciously check that score up to 28 times during that 90-minute process. So if you're happy to measure the performance of your sporting team of choice, why should you not measure your team that actually make you money and deliver upon your business?
And I suppose, is there, apart from a mystery shop, would you work with clients to help them set like a scorecard for that sort of hospitality or whatever it might be to measure it internally? Do you do that as well, like more from a consultancy point?
We can do that certainly with Instant Insight, for example. But we can do it from a mystery shop. You can get a very clear pattern of what they do well, what they don't do well. You won't get it from one mystery shop. You won't get it from two mystery shops. By the time you've done a third, which we call a baseline mystery shop, you will then begin to see a pattern develop of where the strengths and weaknesses actually lie. And I often say to my clients that some maybe only want to do 4 a year and they maybe want to do 1 every quarter. They're actually better spending that money and doing 4 in quick succession. And then they'll get a very true understanding of where the issues are, not a wavy pattern of ups and downs during the course of the year if they're doing 4. So continuity is key. If the budgets only allow them to do 4 in 4 months. And they'll get a very, very clear pattern of where the strengths and weaknesses of their staff lie.
Very good. Well, look, there's a lot of interesting stuff there. I really love the stuff around the little big things. That was around the whole Tesla thing, so it's fantastic. Even Apple, how you approach things,
Yes.
Those types of things. And even that comment you made about checking the score.
Mhm.
I just wonder how many businesses actually have any way of measuring. If they're not using your tools, I mean, what do they do you think, at the moment?
Well, it depends. There are other mystery shopping companies out there. It's interesting. My competitors use spreadsheets, which take an awful lot of time to extract the information from. Our systems are fully automated, so it means the information's there at the push of a button. But obviously, there are various survey tools as well. They all have their purpose. They all have a function. There's very few of them. In fact, there's none as advanced as what Instant Insight is in terms of delivering the way it does within the timeframes.
So, out of all the different things, David, I just want to wrap some of this up now, just a thought. But what sort of clients are you working with? What type of clients do you, you did mention solicitors. I take it. So, what other types of clients, and what type of clients are you looking to deal with, and why?
In the perfect world, our business has been, we've built up a really unique model around what we call professional services, and that is solicitors, accountants, financial advisors, mortgage brokers, insurance companies. Our systems are now totally bespoke to them. There's nobody else in the industry doing what we do within those sectors. So really, that would be our primary focus. Whilst we can work in any sector, we have never turned business down in terms of not being compatible with a business. But those are the sectors that we have really, really pushed ahead and made a niche for ourselves in, because there is just nobody else in the whole of the UK doing what we're doing.
And the other thing, I mentioned this the other day, just when we were having a chat at this, in the Instant Insight part, you were talking about that's feedback and from a staff point of view. You also talk about that potentially on where you can have on product as well.
Yeah. We are looking at potentially putting, it can work by QR code. And for example, you could have a packet of bacon and put a QR code, which the customer could scan, and it takes them into the Instant Insight system, and they'll be asked 1 or 2 questions about the quality of the product. Did you enjoy your bacon? It may ask them to want to join a mailing list to get some recipe ideas sent out. But it can very easy. The app system can work by email, QR code, text message, or WhatsApp.
That's just, all those things are all just simple tools. I suppose there's got to be something there as well about looking after the client. And they always say it's cheaper to look after the client you have for them to return buyer as opposed to continue
Correct.
for clients. So have you any sort of stats or thoughts about that generally for different industries?
There is a figure for that, Andrew, and off the top of my head, I can't remember it. But in terms of, I think it's is it 5 times the investment, 5 times the investment to bring a new client in of what it costs to keep a client.
Yeah, and this is the thing about this interview. It's been totally, you haven't been rehearsed in this at all, which been I'm glad on. It's been in the raw really.
Yep.
And I've had a few questions working my way through them. So, is there anything in reaching out? We are live at the moment on a couple of platforms, but is there anything you'd like to put out there to say the types of clients you're looking for, like to connect with people, or is there anything about any of your products you just like people to know about? That now you've got a couple of minutes just to promote that maybe.
Certainly, we're more than happy to offer free mystery shops. Anybody can come along and get a free mystery shop from us. If anybody wants a trial Instant Insight, they can do. There's a free trial available on that as well for a short period of time. By all means, feel free to contact me. I'm not sure how you want my email address or phone number to go out, but we're more than happy.
What's the best for you? Is there a particular website that's good for you, David? Or
if you want to go into www.insight6.com, and you will find the team there, and I'm on the team with my contact details.
Okay. And is there anything else? Is there from? I'm going to put that website actually into just the chat box as well, so people can see that this time. Is there anything else? You're talking about other products or anything else that people should be looking at, that type of thing.
Well, I think every business should be looking at measuring staff performance. That is the bottom line, and that's one of the key ways to actually grow a business. I think it's important to stress this, that if a company buys into a customer experience program, they will grow their business by 6% over budget over the course of a year. So they may well have set a budget for 10% growth as planned by their business plan. But I think by buying into a customer experience program, they can grow that by an additional 6% at less than 1% cost.
I've also just put on there, David, just put on your email address as well, so people can contact you that way, and that would be fantastic as well.
Yeah.
Is there any particular company you'd love to reach out to, maybe that you just can't seem to get into? You might put it out here live, maybe you don't, maybe that's confidentiality, I'm not too sure.
If you bear with me, Andrew, I could maybe turn a few names up here.
That's all right. To do that. So if watching can help David, then that would be absolutely fantastic.
I would like to work with the likes of Boojum or Dreams, the betting company. Maud's Ice Cream would be great. Carson McDowell Solicitors, Titanic in Belfast, the George Best Belfast City Airport. There's a few.
The list of stuff. Well, I know the Titanic Belfast. It's a fantastic attraction.
It is. Yes.
We had some Americans through it, and somebody from Australia through it last week, and they just thought it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
There's a few just to get the ball rolling.
Good. Well, look, we've been on. Believe it or not, we've been on about 40 minutes.
40 minutes. Yeah.
Time has flown. So, is there any last thing you would like to say, just from you personally, to anyone who's listening, either now or later, or how to connect with you, or in at all?
I think the two things I would leave people with thoughts with are two quotes. One is well known by Peter Drucker: if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. And I often think as well, there's one that's much more severe than that. It's from Steve Jobs of Apple: a company without feedback lacks leadership. And there's a good thought to finish on.
So a company without
feedback lacks leadership.
David, it's actually been a pleasure having you on today.
Thank you for your time. It's been very enjoyable.
And let's hope that other people on this, please feel free to share it, replay. If you want to speak to David, put comments in the chat box or in the social media platform, and David can always catch up with you. So again, David, thank you very much for being on.
Andrew, thank you.
and sharing some of those things.
Yes.
Definitely love the little big things like the Apple part, even the checking the score, that instant insight part that you've got, the journey mapping, the mystery shoplifting, the mystery shopping.
Yes.
So all different tools in the toolbox for people how they can improve. And you can reach out to David. He has offered a free mystery shop as well. So different things he's mentioned today. So if you want to look at your business and some of the things how he can help you, then I encourage you to do that. So thank you very much, David.
Andrew, thank you very much indeed.